Well, thanks for joining us for Nightique. Well, now, starting this evening and going forward, we're on the CW station in Hattiesburg, along with Jackson, and also Meridian on Cozy TV. So we want to welcome Hattiesburg and Meridian to the Nightique family. Now, for this evening, we're going to talk once again to the investigative reporter at the Clarion Ledger, Jerry Mitchell. He's an acclaimed investigative reporter, and you probably remember he's had a series of articles that he's done relating to the prison crisis, the conditions in the prison, and all of the other issues that are going on with the prison. And of course, it's been in the news recently, big news with with all of that. So we're going to talk to him about the prison situation and the latest developments. Stay with us. This is Nightique.
Since 1849, Carter Jewelers has been a part of Jackson's rich history. Over 163 years later, we've not only survived, Carter Jewelers has flourished. From generation to generation, we've established a tradition of excellence. Our reputation is built on customer satisfaction, service, and trust. Every piece of jewelry is handpicked, so you know you're getting the best value.
Nobody says I do like we do at Carter Jewelers.
Come see us and be part of our history.
Stop paying expensive repair bills now. When you own a car, SUV, or truck, sooner or later it will break down, and that will cost you thousands of dollars. Just one transmission job could cost over $3,000. A new engine could cost over $4,000. Did you know that the odds of your car breaking down are greater than your being in an accident? You wouldn't drive without auto insurance. If you own a 2002 vehicle or newer with less than 125,000 miles, a vehicle service contract from CarTection.com could save you thousands of dollars. Qualifying is easy. A custom plan is created for you. You select the coverage that's right for your vehicle and budget. Call for a no-obligation, risk-free quote now. Your covered repairs will be paid directly to your mechanic for you. Get the coverage you really need. A vehicle service contract from CarTection.com. We'll keep you on the road with a coverage you can count on. Call for a no-obligation, risk-free quote now. Call 800-708-9923. That's 800-708-9923.
Ingalls Shipbuilding is hiring electricians, structural welders, machinists, ship fitters, pipe fitters, and pipe welders in our Pascagoula, Mississippi site. Signing bonuses available for pipe welders only. Positions are union represented. Come build your career with Ingalls Shipbuilding. Go to www.huntingtoningalls.com/careers or call 888-935-1507. Well, Jerry Mitchell, Jerry, thank you for coming to our show.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm really proud that we had you on a number of times.
Yeah, we did.
Before all of the news broke about the Mississippi Department of Corrections issue, that I guess the investigation and subsequent indictments are correct?
Right. Chris Epps, who's of course corrections commissioner, was arrested and is charged with bribery. He has pleaded not guilty of those charges, and also charged as a former state lawmaker named Cecil McCrory. And so they've been charged with, the allegations are that Mr. Epps was paid more than $700,000 in bribes over a period of about 5 or 6 years, including a beachfront condo. Anyway, they have both pleaded not guilty at this point to both the charges.
You know, these are in a state like Mississippi where you know we're struggling to move forward and have a higher standard of living for everyone. And, you know, and considering all of those facts, how could something like this occur? Of the dimensions, the numbers are so staggering.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
A lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, you're talking about total contracts that Cecil McCrory was linked to. We're talking about $1 billion. So this is not just, you know, a small amount of money we're talking about. Yeah, we're a poor state, but yet we spend $389 million a year on corrections. It's a lot of money.
So yeah, it's considering we're a poor state.
Yeah, we are.
There's a lot of resources being pumped into that area.
Yeah, it's more corrections. There's more. We spend more on corrections than a lot of departments like tourism, economic development. You know, you could combine like a lot of state functions, and there would still be less than what we spend on corrections. We spend a tremendous amount, and we're also, in terms of incarceration. You know, I talked about this before. We actually incarcerate more people per capita than China and Russia combined. I mean, that's kind of staggering when you think about that, because we don't really think of China and Russia as places you'd really want to get arrested in, and yet we incarcerate more people than they do.
It really is staggering. When we did the stories about the issues inside the prisons,
Yes.
murders and such as that,
Exactly.
we really were talking about those kinds of issues. We weren't talking about potential corruption within the hierarchy of the command
you're
structure.
Correct. You're correct.
So they both, you know, not
Well,
only
corruption does beget corruption. I mean, it's a thing. It's an insidious thing. And I know I actually had a gang leader tell me this. You know, basically inside prison, I was talking to him he called me on his cell phone. And so we talked, and he told me, he said, well, it's real easy to corrupt the guards. And then once you've corrupted them once, you got them.
because you can blackmail them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You can say
exactly.
you know,
Well, if you don't work with me
right.
now, I'm going to tell about what you did before.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of you kind of get people in deeper and deeper.
You know, one of the issues we touched on when you were here earlier was that there was a murder committed
Right.
inside one of the prisons.
Right.
And it was a prisoner who murdered another prisoner, and there was some question as to who
Right.
popped the lock. Was it done from
Right.
inside a command structure, or was it an accidental thing? And so we talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
And now that particular person has
Right.
been found guilty of murder, that prisoner.
Right. He pleaded guilty. Sure.
And they
did.
found also that the lock, I believe they found that the lock was popped
Well,
from
he-
inside.
He admitted that he got the tower officer
He
to
said
pop the
that.
lock. He told the FBI this now, since we talked last.
So that means that a person employed at the prison was literally tied into that murder. by
Right. He
popping
was
that lock.
he was an accessory in some way. I
Yeah.
mean, whether that means I'm not saying that means he's guilty of murder, but there's some in Mississippi, under Mississippi law, if you're an accessory before the fact, as they call it, then you're just as guilty of that crime as, say,
Because
another crime.
the guard would not necessarily have, he would not have
Bingo.
known that a murder was going to be committed.
Right.
But
He wouldn't. But let's say he knew that he thought an assault was going to take place.
Right.
Well, if you know an assault's going to take place, it's is that kind of the next possibility? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If someone
yeah.
goes, if you're letting someone in to go beat somebody,
Yeah.
does that open the door to him being? I can give you another example. Let's say you're a driver for a bank robber, and what you understand from the guy he's going to go rob a bank, and I agree, I'm going to drive him. And so, okay, I drive him, I'm waiting, he goes inside the bank, and he shoots a teller,
Right.
shoots and kills a teller, and then comes back out with the money. Actually, I can be charged with murder.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the guy told me, "Oh no, I'm not gonna hurt anybody. I'm not gonna kill anybody.
I bet that's happened many a time too.
Exactly, and so it's not unheard of that people may not, quote, have advance warning, but if you understand what's going to take place, like if there's a bank robbery and a guy is carrying a gun with him, there's a possibility that some harm could be done. And
Right.
just like we're talking about, if you're you think about this is an inmate that is in protective custody because the gang, the Silent City Royals, wanted to kill him because he had cooperated with authorities with regard to another gang killing that he had witnessed and cooperated with authorities, so the gang wanted to kill him. So therefore, they knew this guy that went and committed the murder was a violent member of that gang, the Simon City Royals. And so they opened the door for this guy as a violent member to go in to this guy's cell.
So this particular individual pleaded guilty to the crime?
Yeah, Tyler Smith pleaded guilty to killing Clifton Majors inside the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility.
And he was given a life sentence?
Yes, he was.
Is this normal for someone to plead guilty to a crime like this, or is this not normal?
It's kind of unusual in the sense that most people don't plead guilty to murder. I did have another possible charge that they could have pursued, an assault charge with regard to an assault he committed while he was in Rankin County Jail. And so that may have been part of the impetus for him to go ahead and plead guilty to that.
I saw it on television. Maybe it was in Clarion Ledger's site.
Yeah, it was.
It was, and it was a long story where the mother was there.
Yeah.
And the mother was, she faced the accused, and
she did. She as she said her statement, she was talked about to the judge, you're allowed to make a victim statement, and what she said was, you know, what he had done was, you know, atrocious and killed her son in cold blood, and the guy who did it's 6'2", her son's 5'6", you know, obviously didn't stand a chance, and so as she's walking by him, you know, he mouths the words, "I got him."
Oh, really?
To the mother, and then the mother just, you know, loses it basically. You're just an animal, you know,
Yeah, pretty dramatic
you're a
video.
monster. Yeah, it was pretty awful.
Well, we're going to talk about your new series. I think it's some of the greatest crimes in the state of history in the history of the state of Mississippi. Right? Is that
right?
What is the thrust of your new article?
Well, it's about kind of the history of corruption. Mississippi is #1 in the nation in the number of public officials who've been prosecuted over the past 40 years.
Really?
Yes.
It doesn't compute, really. I don't know.
Well, it's easy to explain, I think. I think it'll make sense.
Wow. Okay, good. Well, Jerry Mitchell from the Clarion Ledger, and of course, clarionledger.com. Not only can you get a recap of what's in the paper, but you can see videos like we were just talking about that probably you can't see anywhere else. So we'll be right back. This is Nightique. Stay tuned.
Since 1849, Carter Jewelers has been a part of Jackson's rich history. Over 163 years later, we've not only survived, Carter Jewelers has flourished. From generation to generation, we've established a tradition of excellence. Our reputation is built on customer satisfaction, service, and trust. Every piece of jewelry is handpicked, so you know you're getting the best value.
Nobody says I do like we do at Carter Jewelers.
Come see us and be part of our history.
Ingalls Shipbuilding is hiring electricians, structural welders, machinists, ship fitters, pipe fitters, and pipe welders in our Pascagoula, Mississippi site. Signing bonuses available for pipe welders only. Positions are union represented. Come build your career with Ingalls Shipbuilding. Go to www.huntingtoningalls.com/careers or call 888-935-1507. Well, Jerry Mitchell, the article in Sunday's paper, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I talk about the history of corruption in Mississippi, and there was a study done not that long ago that looked at all the states in the United States and which state has the most corruption. And Mississippi came in #1. Now, what they were actually looking at was from 1976 to 2008, which state convicted more public officials of corruption than any other state, and it was Mississippi. Now, a large percentage, there were actually quite a number of public corruption investigations in the 70s and the 80s, but the biggest one was called Operation Pretense. and it involved investigation of county supervisors across Mississippi who were basically taking kickbacks. They were getting kickbacks, like they would give a contract to some particular vendor, and then the vendor would give them a kickback. And so the guy that kind of played the role was a preacher, and he went around, you know, kind of from county to county trying to get them to use his services, and he would give them a 10% kickback. And
what was the preacher selling?
I believe it was like pipe or something like that. It was like something, you know, something you would typically use with road work.
I see.
And so he was giving a 10% kickback.
So if he comes to the particular county and I'm the supervisor, and he comes in and use my pipe, and so okay, well,
yeah, I can cut a deal for you, and if
so
you,
we need
$1
million a pipe, but
yeah,
it's going to
yeah.
cost you.
Well,
extra
I'm willing to. If you'll give me the contract, I'll give you 10% extra.
So you give me $100,000 for $1 million contract.
Well, no, you would get 10% off. You would get 10% back. Right. With $1 million contract, it would be that.
So somebody was making $100,000.
Right. Yeah, something like that. You know, depending on how big the you know, the contract was. So, yeah, it's.
And
it's
how
amazing.
many supervisors
There
were
are 57 county supervisors.
were involved in this?
Yeah, that were convicted.
Oh, actually convicted.
Actually convicted.
So that was a statewide thing.
Yeah, it was huge at the time. This came out in '87. You know, they just, you know, indicted all these county supervisors kind of all at once, and I covered a number of those trials, and I was covering federal courts at the time, so I got to cover all that.
You know, we're a small state, really.
Yeah, we are. I always say
considering-
we're a big small town. That's what I say.
Yeah, I mean, compared to, you know, big metropolises, we're a small
right.
state. But to even be in the ranking is kind of really astounding.
Well, it's the per capita ranking, obviously, and the reason, it doesn't mean necessarily Mississippi is more corrupt, although obviously you have to have a certain amount of corruption to be able to qualify. But obviously we've had quite a few federal corruption prosecutions.
Can you talk about a few other of the greatest hits of
Sure.
crime?
I mean, we had highway commissioners who were taking bribes. In fact, if I remember right, in that one of the cases, he kept his bribes in one of those liquor bags. You know, like he kept his, you know, the money that he was getting from the bribes in a liquor bag, and then you had the public service commissioners. You had one of them allegedly get, you know, $16,000 in cash. The guy just came in and gave him $16,000 in cash in an envelope, and
was he convicted?
Yes, he was.
Convicted.
He was convicted. So was the highway commissioner.
So these are federal investigations.
Yes, they were. All
I
these.
guess you can't really expect the state to necessarily police
Exactly.
statewide stuff, right?
And really, a lot of the credit for those investigations goes to both the FBI and to James Tucker, who was the head of the criminal division down in the Southern District here in Mississippi. And he was very involved. And of course, the Northern District did a number of these cases too in pretense. But he was one. He was kind of oversaw a lot of these corruption cases in those days.
It's really something. The preacher, for example, whatever happened to the preacher? Was he a preacher or a local?
He really was a preacher. Here, you know, I don't know. I should check that out. I'll see what the preacher. I wonder if he's still preaching.
Is he preaching somewhere, or
probably so?
Did he move away?
he may have moved away.
He may have moved away. So how will this be an ongoing series?
Yeah, we're continuing to follow. You know, kind of the investigation and other things that we're looking at. We're looking at, you know, things that are, like, say, mentioned in the indictment, particular companies and things like that. You know, things that, you know, what did these companies do for the money that they were getting paid, and those kinds of things. I mean, those are kind of fascinating questions, you know, that we see mention of quite a number of companies in these indictments. So what did they do to get the money? And then Cecil McCrory got hired as a consultant in some of these cases and allegedly was splitting the money that he was getting, $12,000 a month, with Chris Epps, the corrections commissioner.
This is part of the indictment.
Yes, that's part of the allegations of the charge.
Do you think with something as large as this, I mean, do you expect that maybe there will be others that will prove to have been involved in some way?
I expect there'll be some other charges.
So there might be other
Yes,
indictments.
I do. Yes, I expect that probably. You know, it's up to grand jury whether they indict or not, but I think that it's certainly a very real possibility there'll be other people charged.
Do you think this would be other people involved in the prison system, or would it be politicians, or?
Well, the two people who got charged are kind of, they're both in the same and different arenas. Mm-hmm. Chris Epps obviously is in the corrections arena. Let's presume he's cooperating with authorities, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then anybody that he had allegedly gotten a bribe from would be someone that, you know, could be within that realm.
So in a situation like this, with as many charges that are leveled,
right,
it would be common practice to say, now, if you really help us with this, then
absolutely,
then we're going to help you.
Right,
but
right,
if you don't
right.
help us, then we're not going to help you.
Or Cecil McCrory, you know, if he's cooperating, and from the reading of the indictment, I kind of gather he was, because of the way the indictment reads. You can kind of read between the lines, and it looks like maybe he's cooperating. And assuming he is, I think this same kind of thing. I think anybody that's kind of within his universe that was allegedly involved in corruption would certainly fall within that same area.
So really, there might be some other surprises.
I think so. I mean, certainly it's within the corrections universe, but then the other universe that this could touch, Cecil McCrory, of course, was a board chairman of the Rankin County School Board. So this could get into kind of the Rankin County
because he
aspects.
was that was
Yes.
his post. That was his post, right?
Yeah, it was his post he was holding.
So yeah, and
I'm
so,
not saying anything against the school or the school board. I'm just saying that he's within that universe. Is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so really, we don't know what to expect.
Yeah,
next.
it could go. What I'm trying to say is it could go a lot of different directions.
A lot of different directions. And so naturally, Clarion Ledger will be covering this.
We'll be covering it all and see what happens next. And we'll continue to write about the prisons and some of the problems that we've seen in prisons, like we've mentioned before about officers popping locks for inmates to let them carry out assaults or killings and things
and
like
just
that.
the awful conditions in some of the prisons too.
Yeah, they were.
You know, it's like barbaric conditions that
yeah, absolutely.
you've
We've
reported
written
on.
about that.
I'm wondering now.
The gangs kind of ruling and the corruption reigning and those kinds of things.
What is going to, with all of this turmoil going on within that system, is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
That's a good question. I mean, the governor has appointed a bipartisan task force to look at these contracts, but that's all they're assigned to do. And so the question is going to be, is there going to be any kind of effort to investigate beyond that? I mean, obviously, federal officials are only going to be able to investigate what crimes took place. The question beyond that is, okay, what is being done to kind of clean it up? I mean, is there something that, you know, is the governor going to take steps that way? Are you going to appoint, let's say, a reformer type, a corrections commissioner to take over and clean house and that kind of thing? What are you going to do?
Like a czar?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
And I don't know. We'll see what the governor does.
Well, we'll be following, and we'll hopefully have you back on soon.
Absolutely.
And you know, one final note is: has there been any updates with the alleged serial killer?
Yes, there is an update on Felix Vale, the alleged serial killer. He's supposed to go on trial early next year, so it's looking like maybe February or March. There may be a trial day. Of course, that'll take place in Lake Charles, but I'll be covering it, obviously.
You'll be covering that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have more news on that.
Yes.
And okay, Jerry, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much, and we'll see you soon. It's Jerry Mitchell
so.
from Clarion Ledger and theclarionledger.com. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time on Nightique.
Stop paying expensive repair bills now. When you own a car, SUV, or truck, sooner or later it will break down, and that will cost you thousands of dollars. Just one transmission job could cost over $3,000. A new engine could cost over $4,000. Did you know that the odds of your car breaking down are greater than your being in an accident? You wouldn't drive without auto insurance. If you own a 2002 vehicle or newer with less than 125,000 miles, a vehicle service contract from CarTection.com could save you thousands of dollars. Qualifying is easy. A custom plan is created for you. You select the coverage that's right for your vehicle and budget. Call for a no-obligation, risk-free quote now. Your covered repairs will be paid directly to your mechanic for you. Get the coverage you really need. A vehicle service contract from CarTection.com. We'll keep you on the road with a coverage you can count on. Call for a no-obligation, risk-free quote now. Call 800-708-9923. That's 800-708-9923.
Ingalls Shipbuilding is hiring electricians, structural welders, machinists, ship fitters, pipe fitters, and pipe welders in our Pascagoula, Mississippi site. Signing bonuses available for pipe welders only. Positions are union represented. Come build your career with Ingalls Shipbuilding. Go to www.huntingtoningalls.com/careers or call 888-935-1507. Well, surely we'd like to thank you for joining us for this edition of Nightique and the new stations joining our program nightly, Hattiesburg and Meridian, along with Jackson. And if you'd like to look at the program or the series of programs that we've already done, we've got them archived, and you can find them at nightique.com. Nightique, like critique, but a nighttime critique, a Nightique. Nightique.com, and you can submit ideas for shows. If you think we should interview a particular person, let us know who that is, and we will get in touch with them and have them on the show. We'd like to have entertainers of all sorts and newsmakers, and so feel free to contact us at Nightique.com and take a look at some of the shows we've done before. See you next time on Nightique.